introduce Christy Madden, who is the support coordinator at Marlin Coast Neighbourhood Centre, who was one of our amazing employers. So big welcome, Christy. How are you today?
Hi everyone, thanks for having me.
Well, you're a little bit, I can't hear you very well, Christy.
Ooh,
You
am
might
I not
just,
loud enough? Is that
no,
better?
I don't, you might just need to put your mic closer.
Okay, how about now?
Perfect. I can hear you
Great.
better now. All right. So, Christy, um, can you tell us a little bit about your role in the All Abilities Job Match program and maybe a little bit about MCNC for those who don't know?
Yeah, so MCNC is Marlin Coast Neighbourhood Centre. We're a community centre, neighbourhood centre in Cairns, out in the Northern Beaches area. We're a really small team. We have 6 part-time staff, anywhere from 10 hours through to 30 hours a week. And our basic uh, reason for existing is to provide safe space for the community and some opportunity for community engagement, social inclusion, real basics as such of providing somewhere in the community for people to come and connect with other people. Sometimes that's through crisis. They walk through the door in crisis and we try and help, and other times it's because they just want to have a cuppa, and everything in between. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. How I found out about the opportunity of having an intern, an email came through my emails. I jumped on and said, amazing, always looking for another set of hands, what's the process, etc., and actually missed out. And then obviously something behind the scenes happened, and Danielle reached back out and said, are you still interested? And I said, absolutely. So super easy process that Danielle made possible for us. A couple of emails, a couple of phone calls, and next minute we're on the shortlist with the opportunity to be able to have somebody at our centre for 3 months. We have such small team and such small amount of hours allocated to our team members because we are government funded. Our funding streams are in they're 4 programs. So we have one of our workers, for instance, we have a Skilling Queenslanders for Work program here. So we only have her staff funding and her in the centre because we have that contract. Mine is around the crisis support stuff. I've got a co-worker who's around an older persons programs, the seniors in the community. And then between us all, we do little bits of extras around other programs that we know are beneficial, but we don't have funding for. Running the centre itself, your reception and behind the scenes bits and pieces. So we all wear a lot of different hats to keep the show running to the degree that the community potentially needs. And our funding is very restricted and very, very limited as such. Yeah.
It's Danielle speaking. Thanks for sharing, Christy. It's it sounds like such a just so true of working in the community services sector that having to pivot all of the time and wear multiple hats on limited funding. So yeah, I know when we spoke and you had like a particular vision for the internship as well. I was super excited that yeah, the particular internship that you wanted to host, there was not only the ability to really work around the intern's strengths and interests and lived experience, but also contribute, being such a small team, actually contribute to something that would have a legacy. And for them, and for this particular project, it was internship was the youth program. Is that correct? That you were
Yeah,
developing?
so
Yeah.
I've only been here at Marlin Coast for about a year, over a year now. And prior to coming to Marlin Coast, I worked in a different neighbourhood centre. So when I came to Marlin Coast, I kept having these repeated conversations with people in the community around There's a real gap in the Northern Beaches regions around youth services. There's nowhere for kids to go after school apart from the local shopping centre or McDonald's that, of course, the shopping centre staff don't want all of the teenagers there and the behaviours that follow. Um, and I tried desperately with all of the local politicians and the regional funded services like YouthLink and Yeti and so on to get outreach into our area, but I couldn't get them to play ball. So I started thinking outside the box a little bit and thought, well, we don't have funding and we do not have capacity ourselves to directly deliver. If I'm able to get funding from somewhere, maybe we can find somebody appropriate that can help this happen. So we did engage with this process with a real ideal in mind that if we got the right person, we could start a new program here and we could try and help fill that community gap a little bit. So I did go into this conversation with Danielle and then China around who and what we were trying to achieve. And it was quite specific, which is really interesting and probably not as diverse and open when you're talking about inclusion in the workplace and who you're advertising a role for as maybe as it could have been. But it was with the real acknowledgement that if I'm going to launch something really successful in our community for youth, it's not me. I'm old. Hopefully the small camera covers a bit of my grey hair, but it's definitely there. And when you're trying to engage with 13 to 17-year-olds, you really need to relate to them. So my ideal in my description when engaging with this with the ladies was they needed to be under 25. They needed to be the bridge for me in that I can come in and I can be the adult and the supervisor, but I need somebody who can talk their talk and walk their walk because trust me, cannot keep up with the energy of these kids. So it was very purposeful in what we were trying to achieve and it needed to be the right person. And yeah, that was kind of the beginning of it. Yes.
It's Danielle speaking. I actually loved that you had a particular program in mind. So there was that purpose for the organization, but also that you wanted to make sure that the project that this intern was contributing to, reflected their lived experience and, as a young person as well. So I actually think it was a really strategic way for you, the organization, to really embed lived experience purposely from the beginning and not just lived experience as a person with disability. So I thought it was a really great approach. My next question for you is, how did you really work with the intern to identify their strengths and interests? And then how do you feel like that really benefited the program and the work that you do at MCNC?
Yeah, I think Kim mentioned that she decided she didn't want to know the person's disability and she went in blind, hoping that that would give her, I don't know what her hope was, but from me, I did the same. I chose to not in the interview stages or with AKG or Danielle ask any questions about the person's disability. We did back in the original stages discuss that it really couldn't be a level of physical disability because there were some physicalities required from the role and what would be what they would have to, the role, the duties that they would have to do as such. So as far as psychological barriers, disabilities, etc., I chose to not know. I didn't feel like it was something that I needed to be direct about. People can choose to disclose if they want to disclose, but it's not necessarily something that I wanted to have as the conversation in the interview stage. So we did not. And I feel like that was a really beneficial thing in creating a relationship with our intern that we did take on, that it took a couple of weeks for her to disclose to me what her diagnosed disabilities and self-identified disabilities were. But when they were disclosed, it was in a really trusting way and it was used really well moving forward in helping to identify how to interact and follow instructions and how we could use her lived experience within the space with the teenagers who we all know come with their own lived experiences or potentially undiagnosed at that point in their age and their life. And so it worked for me. in having that approach to it. I feel like it created a lot of trust within our relationship as such. Did that answer the question, or did I get sidetracked?
It's Danielle speaking. No, I think you brought up a really important point. I think especially for a program like All Abilities Job Match, where the internships are identified roles, and so the employer knows that the intern that they employ will have a disability of some description. And so I think it would be really easy to kind of, I don't know if fall in the trap is the right terminology, but to, kind of go in expecting to know about that person's disability and kind of it would be so easy for an employer to go, well, I need to know this and this and this. And so I actually really respect that, that's not something that you push because you're absolutely right. That disclosure, it's not even always necessary, but B, it should be coming from the employee themselves. And so even though it was an identified role, it was more important for you took that approach of creating that relationship and creating that safe space where the intern could come to you if they needed to identify any workplace adjustments or any additional supports that they might need or things that they might need to do differently because of their disability. So yeah, I think it sounds like the intern really appreciated that approach, and I think the fact that that space was created only within a few weeks is kudos to you and the team, Christy, because I mean I know from my own experience there's some employees I would never even have the conversation with.
Yeah,
So congrats.
thanks.
I
Look,
guess.
I think the reality too for people is so our particular intern, she's fabulous, really, really lovely person. But her list is long in what she can actually diagnose or has been diagnosed and then self-diagnosed both. And I think if she had sat in an interview chair and listed 5 or 6 things to an employer, that as much as we want to say we are not judgmental, we are human and everyone is judgmental to a degree. And so I think being able to keep that out of this space and work on people in creating a relationship first is really, really important. And then it provides the opportunity when you do get the actual clarity of them telling them the big lists that potentially they own and they carry with weight in their heart and souls, never mind their shoulders, and that they're continuously trying to cover up to people, to then have them disclose in their own time, in their own way, and not have to carry so much weight around that in the workspace. That's a really different scenario than having to sell themselves with a list in an interview or a first day. And so being able to build her confidence to then want to disclose, it creates a very solid relationship between people, which I think is really appreciated by them. We knew this was a very short time thing. We don't have ongoing funding, and we're looking because we would like to retain her. But we started this knowing we potentially don't have ongoing funding, and so it needed to be really purposeful for her. And one of the things I said right at the beginning was, even if it's not with us, I'd like to find a pathway for you to not go back into unemployment. And so creating that level of trust in that was necessary for us to potentially pass her on to somebody else as such, with confidence on her side, not confidence on our side because we would potentially be done, but from confidence from her that we have her best interests at heart and that we would potentially help her move elsewhere to somebody else that would have her interests at heart. And I think that's a really important thing, that people, when they have disabilities, they've felt that exclusion repeatedly. And so to then have somebody have that faith and hope for them within their space and the potential next space. You're not giving false hope, and that's really important.
It's Danielle speaking. All right. I do want to finish off with a question, because I mean you've identified that MCNC is a small organization with a small team, limited
Mm,
funding, etc.
mm,
But you've also shown that you know, you have the capacity to hire people with disability and do it well
mm.
and meaningfully through this program. So I guess after my question for you is, after your experience with the All Abilities Job Match program, what advice do you have for similar organizations on how to begin implement inclusive workplace practices?
Again, the ladies already touched on a bit of you think you know, but you should always be open to continue education around. I think we are an inclusive space. We welcome everyone from every corner of the world into our space at one point or another. We're really big in the disaster resilience and emergency response space for our area, that deal with, you know, cyclones and floods, et cetera, et cetera. Fun stuff. And when you're dealing with that sort of thing, you have to be inclusive and welcoming to everybody in that crisis. So I think we've done it well previously, but when you think something else presents, and then you've got to shift and you've got to be open to further educating yourself. I think that's the biggest thing. But ultimately, more for people that are looking to engage in this process is give it a crack. Why wouldn't you give it a crack? Look, for us, especially that it came with funding, right? But being able to offer people an opportunity that they didn't know existed, that may open other doors in other spaces that will be really purposeful for that organization and that person, but also the wider community that then will be able to interact. You know, we be what we see, and if we don't see, we can't ever aspire. And so right now, my intern is working with a group of predominantly 13 to 15-year-olds, and we have very clearly identified that a couple of these young ones are a bit lost in our community because they have these diagnosed or undiagnosed disabilities. And when she can connect with them and they can see very clearly, and she's very transparent with them, that I too have, and I too have struggled with, those conversations open those kids' eyes to say, wow, if she's doing this job, I could do this job. And that is necessary in our world. That's my biggest thing that I think is the real take home from this process is she is displaying what she needed to see when she was younger. It's a gap. It's a real gap. And how amazing that we can, in a really short time, address that, identify that, and want to build on that. That's what other organizations can potentially take away from this opportunity, that it's possible, and we should have this aim.
It's Danielle speaking. Thank you so much, Christy, for sharing. I completely echo what you say. And actually, from the work that your intern has been doing with youth and the team there, they have actually been offered a youth peer mentor role with QDN for our upcoming program for young people with disabilities. So.
Mm.
You know, what a fantastic outcome, and the experience that your intern has been able to gain under your mentorship will be so valuable
Yeah.
to her in that role. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and she's truly excited about it. And what's awesome about this is she wouldn't have known about it. She wouldn't have applied for it because trust me, it was a big conversation of, oh, saw this. What do you think? Of course it's you. Of course you should apply for it. You'd be amazing at it. But if I hadn't been here for that conversation with her, she wouldn't have. And so now she's engaging in that, and she's had her first session last week and loved it, and was came in really proud of herself that she had engaged in that and how positive it had been. And what a missed opportunity that would have been for those people that she's going to engage with if she didn't have the belief in herself to even apply, never mind secure. So it's the opening doors for more opportunities is the benefit of these outcomes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Danielle speaking. Thank you so much, Christy, for sharing your insights today and your learnings and for being part of the program. I've
Pleasure.
really enjoyed working with you, and I know your intern has as well, and Ben, who you're a match with as your inclusion consultant. So thank you so
Yes.
much.
Yes.
Um, we are at time now.